All right, for number 2, we're going to use product rule and chain rule. So we can think of this x squared minus 9 as x squared minus 9 to the 1/2 instead of square root. So we do the product rule. Derivative of the first part is just 1 times x squared minus 9 to the 1/2 plus x minus 5 times derivative of this, we get 1/2 times x squared minus 9 to the negative 1/2 times derivative of the inside, which is 2x. Here's where we can factor it. Well, first I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I can multiply the 1/2 and the 2x, just gives us x out in front. But both of these have an x squared minus 9 to a power. We can factor out the smallest degree. So we can factor out an x squared minus 9 to the negative 1/2. If we factor that out of the first part, all we have is x squared minus 9. For the second part, we're left with an x times x minus 5. We can distribute that x, and we get x squared minus 5x. We can combine like terms in there, and we end up with 2x squared minus 5x minus 9 on the inside. And we can think of that derivative like this: 2x squared minus 5x minus 9 all over square root of x squared minus 9. So we want to figure out when is the derivative 0 and when does the derivative not exist. So it's 0 when this top part is 0. That doesn't factor nicely. So you have a couple options on how to solve that. We can use the quadratic formula or graph it. So here I use the quadratic formula. But if you wanted to graph it, you're just graphing y equals 2x squared minus 5x minus 9 and calculating the zeros, right, which we did not too long ago. And then for derivative when it does not exist, we set the denominator equal to 0. So we end up with x squared minus 9 is 0 after we square both sides. And we get x equals positive or negative 3. After we get our answers, we want to check our solutions, right? Check them back into the original equation. Positive, negative 3, that's going to make the part under the square root 0, but that's okay. We can take the square root of 0, right? So f of x would just be 0 at these points. So those are points that works. That's okay. Over here, if we put 3.712 in for x, well, 3.712 squared is going to be something bigger than 9. Minus 9 will be positive. Something positive, we can take the square root of something positive. But if we put negative 1.2 in here and square it, we're going to have some number smaller than 9. So when we subtract that number, subtract 9 from that number, we're going to end up getting a negative under the square root. Right, so that one gives you a negative under the square root in f of x. So that means it's not part of the domain of f. It's not part of the domain. Right? It's not a point on the graph. It can't be a critical value if it's not a point on the graph. So that one we exclude from our answer.